ain't going back. Not gonna buy into all that. Hey, hey, ain't gonna hide. Gonna let all the fears slide. Got mother nature is on my side. Got all of the loving.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the New Now and Autodidactic. This is a combined lovely effort for the holidays. Today, we're talking once again with Dr. Brent Davis of Flora Live, and we're going to do Receiving Love for the Holidays. Who doesn't want love for the holidays? Who doesn't want to heal their heart? Wouldn't that be the best gift for all of us? And I found that Brent's formulations and some of the flowers he's found, even with my own wife, have worked very well. So we're happy to bring this to you today with the man himself, Dr. Davis. Hey, Brent, how's it going?
Very well. Oh, been a good day. Let's see, we've just finished up the last of the gardening. Let's see here. Behind me is
Oh, the peanuts.
those are the peanuts that have now been these are all beautiful ones. They're the ones selected for seed for next year, where we're going to probably produce about 4 times more than we did this year. This year was just an experiment to see how well they did, and they did great, actually.
Yeah.
They're yummy.
I got to look at some of the peanuts when I was there. It was a nice experience. We got to unearth a couple of them and put them back to sleep for another week or two for further growth.
Yeah, we let them go as long as we could, and that did well.
So, Brent, let's get right into Heartman. It was one of the ones that I had a chance to watch do its magic, and maybe you can give us a little background on that particular flower, how you came across it, and some of the effective solutions for people that you've seen in your work over the last many years.
Okay, I shall. This is I'm going to do a screen share because we were also going to talk a little bit about Flor de la Luna.
And is this the flower of light? Is that what it's called? The light flower or something?
No. Now, what we were just saying, were you saying Bach flowers?
No. What's the flower we're looking at? Flora Luma.
Yeah, the flower that we're looking at, we're actually going to talk a little bit about this combination, but the one on the left is the flower that occurs in Heartman. It's a single essence, and that flower grows here on the edge of the forest. That's where I first found it and prepared it. And in my book, The Floral Hand of God, I wrote a chapter that talked about how I discovered that flower. In my own personal life, it was a discovery that's made a profound difference in my life. And then, that was probably in 2002 or 3, for the beginning. And things started around the turn of the millennium, around 2000. And I discovered it, and it made a huge difference in a friend of mine. And then I took it clinically, and I started, because I'm trained in applied kinesiology and energy psychology, you can actually find out what's going on in someone's unconscious mind. And then you could administer some therapy. It could be homeopathic, it could be acupuncture, it could be anything. And then you can measure to see if that therapy had an effect. What's wonderful is that it's so instantaneous. The flower essences, these are uncut flowers, which means that that's the only ones in the world like that, prepared in this way. And it was patented actually in 2000 and 2001, US, Canadian, and international patents. And because it's so unique, the flower is prepared without cutting it, but in a very special way that conserves energies, which I'll probably get into that in some future recording. But what I call scalar energies, the true scalar energies are very complex, and they actually are linked to the mind of God, mind of creation. That's really what scalar energies and scalar potential goes up, into the higher dimensions. beyond our space-time. And that's how the fluoride essences particularly work, by going into hyperspace and altering the way that our programming is held. Yeah, our brain is transduces information. It doesn't store it. It's really curious the way, our whole world and artificial intelligence now, it's kind of it's marching along the edges of what's real from the spiritual side of things, but then it's missing a great deal on the motivational side. But the interesting thing about the cloud, where all AI is going to be interacting with the so-called cloud, that's hyperspace. That's beyond our 3- and 4-dimensional space that we're familiar with. It's up above that. And that actually is where memory is stored. Ancient times, they talked about the Akashic record, this place where all events are recorded. And so we get stuff stuck up there. And depending on how high that energy is, where it's located, at what dimension, it can be very difficult to access with physical techniques, such as, laying out of hands, or physical procedures may not reach that high. The fluoride flower essences reach way high up, and they reorganize our stored memory so that when we have memories of trauma, they can be reorganized. So Hartman, the reason we certainly want people, and we got another promotion just in terms of Hartman, you can get that on your own. I think I did that. Yeah, it doesn't show the flower, but we'll look at that a little bit later. That lets people get a whole bunch of this, because I can't think of, when we talk about stocking stuffers or whatever anybody's spiritual or religious or non-religious tradition is of this holiday season. Hopefully it's a time of generosity and gifting. And for the cost of this little bottle, when you think of a psychotherapy session, a good one is about $125 for one visit to a therapist. And most of the time, they explore things a little bit, and nothing changes in a visit. It would very rarely ever happen that way. So for this little, actually, look at that. If you spent that amount, you would get 6 bottles of this. You could change the lives of 6 people, because it actually can completely change the life. And I've seen the reason, when I talked with Lorenzo, he said, what's one of the things that would be the greatest gift that we could have people get this time, with all of the chaos being created, the war stuff, going on. I hear about it. I don't follow it, but I hear about it. It sounds very distressing, disturbing. So we need to rise above that. And one way that we can do that is to make sure that our memories of loss and the grief from loss is transformed, transmuted. So when I see a patient, here's something very, very interesting. And this is now firmly established for 20 years, really. I think it was, about 20 years for that product, Heartland. So that's what I was referring to. You can get, this is the most wonderful thing I could think of possibly getting out of it. We have over 60 some flowers. And this one you really don't have to check anyone for it. You pretty well can say, I would say conservatively, at least 80% of the world population would benefit either substantially or profoundly. And the way that we find this clinically is you have a person make a test frame. That's how energy psychology works, one of them. So you can have the person make a statement. One of the ways that we start out is they have them state their name. My name is so on. My name is Brent. Then we would have someone state an opposite or different, like my name is Matilda. And that's not true. So the normally strong muscle should weaken. That's in applied kinesiology.
Yeah.
There's reasons why that doesn't happen, but that's the normal response. So when we see that, and the person, that just allows us to calibrate. If the person is responding correctly, with their own name they strengthen, with someone else's name they weaken. So that means that the system is calibrated. Then we can have them make various statements about what we want to evaluate. So I ask people, and we put it on a form, what have you lost in life? Who have you lost, or opportunities that you've lost, or pets, significant domestic pets that have died? And it is fascinating and was totally unexpected what I have found with people sometimes in their 60s, and we'll find a statement when they think, I can watch their eyes because I watch my patients very closely, and I'll see when they hit something, you can kind of see or even feel in their presence, they got that, they found it, they found the memory when they think back. And I don't know, I would say scores of times I've had people come up with a pet. I lost my little dog, Freddie. I was 6 years old. Freddie got hit by a car. And they're in their 60s. And so the statement is, when we have them identify, we want to test, well, was it Freddie, or was it, Aunt Matilda that died? Or it could have been any number of things. So we can actually check to find out where the biggest loss is. And a lot of times there's more than one. So with the little dog, Freddie, the person would say, the loss of Freddie leaves a hole in my heart. And the language in energy psychology is very important. So the hole in the heart. And they will test true to that. Now, what's really interesting, because I saw so much of that, I made that a point in some of my workshops that I taught to have people with advanced sight, clairvoyance, come to these workshops. And that occurred with a group from Japan. That occurred with highly developed seers in Manila. A workshop with 35 people, and many of them were psychic and clairvoyant. And it occurred here in the United States several times in different workshops. We use that same technique for evaluating the heart. The loss of blank, whatever it is, leaves a hole in my heart. And when you get a big one, almost always can be a big, bristled, tough man. And that's particularly interesting. Big old, bristled, tough guy. And all of a sudden, a little tear will come down right when they say the loss of whatever, blank. There'll be a tear. I've seen it so many times. They just can't, sometimes they feel embarrassed. They can't stop it. Then it tests true. And you give them heart men. The physics of this is discussed in my book, The Floral Hand of God, which is on a website, thefloralhandofgod.com. And instantaneously, and probably at superluminal speeds, meaning greater than the speed of light, this stuff acts. Thank you. he's our Floral Hand of God man. And you'll notice that has a spiral binding on it. The new book that I gave just a few weeks ago to Lorenzo, it has a nice binding on it. And the books that are out there, if you go to buy a used book on Amazon or something, please don't do it. The bindings are often broken. There were old books that are not good. So you want to get them with spiral, and that's on thefloralhandofgod.com. That has the books there. But anyway, that's the physics of, if it sounds preposterous, oh my gosh, what's this guy talking about? Speed of light, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not preposterous. It's good high energy physics. And the outcome is very special. So one of the things about Hartman and many of the floral life essences, often they act rather seamlessly. So if,
So do these basically work on an energetic level? Is that what we're talking about? Like frequency, the frequency
yeah,
of the flower affects the frequency of your body?
yes, sir. Yes, very much. They're very highly dilute. There's no matter at all. So the flower is growing, it's living. I had it, which is in my book, it's described. I had a vision at the turn of the millennium. And I saw very clearly how to create an apparatus to extract the flower while it's living without cutting it,
Mm.
which is very unique. It was an experiment. I would never think of anything except I had a vision at night. And within a couple of weeks, I made this apparatus and I tested it. And it worked. And I was, there's a chapter in there that talks about the novel discovery and the wonder of my discovery and how I was so, elated. And that forever changed my life. That pretty much dictated what I did for the next 12, 14 years.
Mm.
In terms of international travels and dedicating, taking time out of my practice, setting aside substantial earnings from a normal practice because I felt it was so important. And it turns out it is. So let's see. I'm just going to go to the Floralive website. So if you go to the bottom of that, there's a very wonderful thing in the scientific validation. It's really, there's nothing like it for many flower essences. And there's a lot of wonderful flower essences all over the world. When I was doing research on this many years ago, I just wanted to find out, how many people were producing flower essences. And I found a couple of flower essences in Iraq. I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, there are people that are inspired to make flower essences all over the world. And I mean, they're wonderful anytime anybody does that. These are quite different because of the extent to which they've been tested and the way that they're made from uncut flowers. And the flowers themselves, which come from these vortexes of energy. So this is a whole area on the science of it that has been done. We've evaluating our products where the 5-flower formula that was very famous from Dr. Bach, it's made by a couple of companies. And we sent off one of those formulas with this product called Revival, one of our major products. And one of the physicists, he's a specialist in acoustic analysis, he developed a very sophisticated technology that actually now requires supercomputers, that requires that much computing to have these 15-second intervals. Normally when you do this kind of a measurement, it's milliseconds to try to look at a frequency range. He actually figured out a way of doing it over 15 seconds. And what that does is it allows you to see the periodicity of waveforms. And very interestingly, you have to do that if you want to see any of the slow waveforms, like the Schumann frequencies, which are now varying around 7.8 cycles per second. And it's varying all over the place now because of the crazy electronics on Earth. But if you wanted to see these long cycles, those low frequencies have to do with cellular functions in our bodies and cellular communication. So when you look at the chaos on the left, and this was by putting a probe into the substance itself, and look at the harmonic pattern on the right, it's substantially different. And the researchers said that's significant. So, we did another study with 23 participants, and I had a woman that's done many peer-reviewed studies as a statistician, and she did this 30-day trial. And we found that these test results are astonishing. This was in a group of 23 people, 20 of whom filled out, they finished the study. I feel shut down. This was a very carefully constructed test that was done with people noting how they felt at the beginning and noting how they felt in the same form. We call that pre and post. And so it's pre and post, and that shows the pre, and then the post treatment. And the lower it goes, the better. The lower the score, the better. But so you saw, it's amazing. You know, I feel shut down. In the people that reported that, there was a 52% improvement in 1 month from just simply taking broth. So that was exciting to see that. Anyway, that's the science section. And we go back to, we see single essency. And we see all these lovely, lovely pictures. We're talking about Hartman. We'll see the picture of that a little bit more closely, which is here. Look at that. Now, I took all the photos on the site, and I think Lorenzo is sensitive to these, and I think you could feel the energy, right, Lorenzo? You could actually feel the energy.
Yeah, I could smell the energy when I was near the
these.
plants. Yeah. When I came close to them, for me, they all had an interesting olfactory effect, of a pleasant one, I may add, which was very attractive from
Yeah, and that's interesting because the substance itself could not have an effect because there are no essential oils in it, but it does have a vibrational frequency, and you were sensing that. And other people as well. I don't, oddly. I mean, I make these things, but I can't tell a fragrance difference between them. But some patients come back in and they'll say, you know, that stuff, I love it. It tastes wonderful. I look at them, I go, what?
Yeah. I found the same thing.
So they're picking something up.
Yeah. I got a couple and they taste different to me.
Yeah. They did have a beautiful flowery taste, I have to say, when I tried them. To me, anyways, but yeah, seems so.
Yeah. And so that's, to me, that's, you know, that was a curious thing. And then we have the specialty essences, what we're going to be speaking about healing support. And I'll go back to that and show that. But so I really encourage people to go to floralive.com and spend time on there, because there's a great deal of information. That's a picture of me in one of the northern areas of Peru, where many of these flowers come from. And this is, if you notice, there are really no crowds there. There's no one there. I mean, there's me and an occasional campesino walking across there, and maybe some mules. But it's a sacred site, that particularly behind that mountain on the other side of it. I had to walk around the mountain. You know, on the other side of it, there's a sacred lake at about 14,000 feet. And this stuff is there. I just say that, you know, I was guided to this area because it's closer to the mind of God. It's just up there. It's in this space where energy, pure energy, comes into these flowers. So, yeah, and then we have an area at the bottom where the learning center is something where people really should, I think, spend time. And also, people, when they start taking this, often have a lot of questions, and they're answered in those archive blogs. So, any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to get more into the Flor de la Luna. That one's very interesting, about opening up, receiving love. I think that's a challenge that a lot of people maybe have consciously or subconsciously, allowing love to in. I know that's a challenge I've had in my past.
Yeah.
We all have, right?
So the third flower over is Flor de la Luna. And again, the reason that healing support is so special is because it's got these great flowers. The Hartman is in there, Flor de la Luna is in there, and then one flower that's not in there is blue-eyed grass over there on the right. So if you get those things together, the healing support and the blue-eyed grass, and you give it to someone that you care about, if they're at all receptive to change, it could produce a profound change in life. That it's that simple. It's been borne out by many years. It's such an extraordinary combination. So healing support was constructed along with Revival. Revival was one I made in about 2002 or three maybe 2003. And then the healing support was created probably around 2015 or 16. As an effort to get one substance that had a profound ability to change things. In the early stages, and I maybe go back to the website and I'll show the stages of therapy, because it follows a particular course. But Flor de la Luna came from the region that I was showing where I was walking. It came from that region. And it was the first flower that I extracted in Peru. And the book, The Floral Hand of God, tells of the enormous serendipity that's guided all these trips around the world, and particularly many, many trips to Peru, the Andes, high Andes, the jungle, northern Peru, southern Peru. I went all over, and because of the energy in Peru, it's very special. And so the shaman that I was led to was so kind to take time out. He, at the time, had 50 to 60 people together that he did sessions with. He was a bear for work, and he was a great man. He just removed, as a healer, he removed terrible, terrible obstacles with physical shamanic practice. But he also used these flowers in an extract, which is the same way that they do this in Tibet. They throw the flowers into a glass container, and they used old wine bottles. Then they would add what they called aguardiente, which is alcohol. They made it themselves, some kind of a moonshine. But they made a tincture, basically, of these flowers. They would drink it into their mouth, and then, again, as they do in Tibet, they would spray it, because they didn't have spray bottles. And they would spray this on people at the end of their transformational ceremony. And so that was how I met him. I went to see what they were doing. And he took time out for a few days to walk with me in the mountains. Because I told him what I was trying to do, and he supported that. And he showed me this flower on a outcropping above a sacred lake where they go for ceremony. And he said, "Here, this flower is important." But he never said why. So because of who he was, I extracted that flower, but I didn't know for what reason. I mean, I just had it because he said it was important. And then I came back, a few weeks later, I brought it with me. And very quickly in my clinic, I saw what it was about, where I use the test phrase, "I allow myself to receive love." When you test people on that, an awful lot of people fail that test phrase. I allow myself to receive love. They do not stay strong. They are weak. They weaken. So they don't receive love. I found that at a conference. I would find things, and then I would find something to even cement in the finding. So after those initial findings, probably around 2007 or 8, no, it would have had to be later. It would have had to have been about 2012 or 13, because I extracted that, I believe, around 2011. So I went to a conference of the American Holistic Nursing Association, holistic nurses. And I set up a table there, and I started checking them. And I probably checked at least 30 nurses. And I checked them all for Flor de la Luna. I allow myself to receive love. And about 80% of them did not receive love. And I commented to the chairperson at that event who came in. I said, this is the most amazing finding. She looked and she said, "No, it's not amazing at all." She said, "Nurses, they give everything, but they don't." She said, "It's a serious problem. They don't receive back. They're just giving all the time." So And yeah, and so we found that at the nursing convention, and then I would give them the Flor de la Luna, and to the point where we could get that test phrase to change, where you could administer the substance, retest, and then when they did the phrase, I allow myself to repeat, to receive love, they would maintain normal strength, meaning true. So yeah, it's these indications for each of the flowers are borne out by a lot of clinical validation. Hundreds of health professionals have borne those out. However, I produced something, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's actually available on the Floralive website. It's the Floralive training video. I'm afraid it may be a little bit hard to find. I think it's under specialty essences. Anyway, we just put it up, but I think, or you can call us and we'll send you a link to it. But it's a downloadable. Excuse me, it's streaming. You can stream it for about a month, and it's $29.95. It's very inexpensive, and it's a training to try to help people understand, health professionals, how to screen without using muscle testing. It's a different technique when I use both, but it's sometimes people don't realize if you're very good at applied kinesiology muscle testing, there's a lot to it. It's funny because you can still get very good results if you don't have much training at all, or conversely, you can be doing it wrong and then not get the proper result. But I think people that are really involved in healing, I think they figure out if the testing that they're doing works with the muscle testing. So what you find is that when you use holographic scanning, which is a different way, it's a way of measuring whether the frequency of the flower is matched to the frequency of the person, but it does not use muscle testing to do that. There's a way of doing it with this in that video. And you can find that they need the flower, but not for the test fit. In other words, the flower is doing something other than what is described in the test fit. And that happens all the time. Because the breadth of the activity of these flowers is quite huge. So these indicators are just a part of what they can do. So that's why it's so wonderful to have people just experience these, because so many things can come from that. So that's just the general. When the events of 2020 started, and actually even a little bit before that, I was seeing that a lot of my patients were quite sensitive, and they were premonitory signs of something coming. So I was seeing tremendous restlessness, and then all of the shenanigans and the curtailing of human freedoms started, and people, businesses were destroyed and so on. We all know all the damage that's been created. But one of the things that was just sort of silent was hopelessness. Now, people that are strong spiritually don't have that so much, but an awful lot of other people have not been able to resist that subtle infusion of this, it's futile, or as the Borg said, in Star Trek, resistance is futile, right? You prepare to be assimilated. So we've got some folks right now that seem to be pretty closely aligned with the Borg. In other words, the Borg had no heart. They simply were cyborgs. They had high intelligence, but they had no moral compass. And I think, from what I recall, I remember there were 6 episodes that had the Borg in Star Trek. You can tell I was a fan. And those were the most popular of all the episodes that ever occurred over those however many 10 years. I think there were 6 episodes that had the Borg. And it is really worth watching. I mean, it's fascinating to see the intelligence and the lack of heart that is now the strategy of those that are in and palate. So when people that are somewhat timid see the scope and the power of the control, they become hopeless. And there is one flower in there particularly that absolutely reverses hopelessness. So this is a huge, that's why I call the antidote to hopelessness. This is healing support. So again, for those that care and want to give something this holiday season, boy, really can't think of something any better than this to give. So if you can read this while I'm speaking, the chilling phrase that I got, and I figured out what was I going to do to test this, is the condition of the world is hopeless. People test true to that. And then you have them state, my life condition is hopeless. And they test true to that. That's not good. It's really bleak.
Yeah.
So because of the other things, this little flower called Dianthus armeria, it actually, I think it's native to England, I'm pretty sure. And it got over here and it just naturalized in the United States. These are the different flowers that are in healing support, 6 of them. Lecanotia from Australia, gentian species from all over the world, several, like 4 of those. One from the Colorado Rockies, and 3 of them from different areas in the high Andes. A wallflower from
which one is from the
a
Rockies?
remote island in which one?
Yes.
Well, the gentian, one of the gentians is from the Rockies. And Flor del Oso, that's that amazing flower. You saw that in the previous Flor de la Luna, and then Heartland we talked about. So,
right.
Anyway,
which one was
there
for
you have
hopelessness?
it.
Which one was specifically for hopelessness, Brent? You mentioned one of them. Which one of the flowers?
Well, the whole mixture is, but snowball flower very much is the one. That was one from the Philippines. And at this time, that occurs in a product called For Love. There's another wonderful product called For Love, and another product called Healing Support. And it's not available as a single essence. It's just in those combinations because it feels like it's supposed to be with that group of flowers. But it's really remarkable. Yeah. And, yeah.
Yeah. Do you find most of these flowers in high energy places that you use for your tinctures, or sacraments?
Yeah, Campbell, that's really, really important. And again, without stepping on anyone's toes, these are wonderful people all over the world that make flower essences. A lot of times stemming from an acupuncturist in England, actually. I'm not remembering his name right now, but he began a very important teaching of our food and certainly our medicines should all come locally. And it's very well known. He started at school. I'm sorry, my old brain is forgotten at the moment, but Worsley, that's his name. It's the Worsley School of acupuncture. And a lot of people follow that. Everything should come regionally. Well, food, to the extent that you can, certainly you should try and get it regionally. But these flowers, I think we really have to step aside from that view, because what I'm looking for and why I was directed all over the world is energy centers where huge amounts of very unusual information is being streamed into the location. And almost always those are remote. Virtually always. Like when I went to Bali 3 times because I had this amazing guidance that I would find an extraordinary flower. And I never did find the flower that I saw. And I had remote viewers. I really pulled out, the stops. I had people that can see at a distance. They could see the flower. These are crazy stories, but they said that flower is interdimensional and you may not see it when it's present on the earth. Honestly, it got that wild. And these are not crazy people, but they could see it, but they could see that it would phase in and out. And I was right close to it because they could tell, but I could never see it. So I could not prepare that flower, but I know where it grows. Someday, if I run out of things to do, I may go back to Bali, but I did find other absolutely extraordinary flowers that I extracted. And I had to spend one entire trip circumnavigating, going around the entire island of Bali, trying to find one location that wasn't covered with people. The population density on Bali is very high. So it's extremely difficult to find some place that's just not got people crawling all over it. But I did. I found one long canyon with virtually no one in it. I mean, it had waterfalls. It's just unbelievable. And there were pipes that go actually up a couple of miles. The pipes go up to a waterfall basin, and then those pipes go down to various villages. So the only people that you saw up there, I saw one or two people that were coming up to try to take care of the water supply. But otherwise, there was no one there. And I would have like a couple of hours without anyone. So I could do my process quietly, where I photograph the flowers, and then I get this connection with the flower before I do the extraction. So that whole thing takes, well, in that case, it was a day, to do it, but very interesting. Very, like a lot of my trips were very hazardous, because that particular canyon was narrow, in some places only 8 or 10 feet across at the bottom, and stone walls on the side. So like a little spider, we had to crawl along these stone walls with very few handholds. And it was extremely slippery, and it was raining because it was a typhoon. So I was fortunate in finding one man that cared for goats up in that canyon. And he saw what I was doing, and he volunteered to help me. And I would have killed myself without it. The guy was like built like steel, and he'd hold on to me as I was climbing these canyon walls. And he kept me from falling. Anyway, we got up there, but I realized, and he said, well, you're going to have to hurry up here, what you're doing, because we're going to get some torrential downpours. And when that happens, this canyon is not safe. It's like it fills up with, rapidly flowing water. So that was just an example of a marvelous way I was able to get in, photograph the stuff, prepare the stuff. And then when it started to flood, I was already on my way out. But those kinds of amazing things happened all over the world. And now those concentrates are collected. And as Dr. Bach found, who made these things in the 1930s, they don't deteriorate with age. They last pretty much forever, because the frequencies are locked in the nature of the water.
So I guess
and
you found
these things are
so you must have found some flowers in areas that
Yeah.
don't exist anymore. In other words, you have some unique extractions that can't.
Yeah, I may have told you that story, but yeah, the flower, another one of the early flowers that is in revival. And this is something, I have people that, let me see, because people have commented that when they watch these interviews that we've been doing, and I show flowers, some people write that they had a huge reaction when I actually showed the flower. That's interesting, isn't it? I've received several emails. So let's go and look at this, because this is extraordinary. And this is an M flower, Maquilina. So that's going to be probably over about here. Let's see what that is.
Yeah, you did a reading for the one for me as well that has Maquilina in it.
I went past. Yes, Revival has Maquilina in it. So let's look at this. This is one of the astonishing flowers. This one right here. That is an example of this flower grows in many regions. I saw it several locations, but I was guided up to a 15,000 foot. And remember, I went from Lima, which is at sea level, flew up to this place, and then with no acclimation, had to climb up to 15,000 feet. And there's about a 1,500 100-foot straight vertical climb to get up to the top of the glacier, to get to the glacial lake. The glacial lake was probably about, oh, maybe 5 acres or 10. It was small. But I'll never forget it. I mean, there was this ridge of, snow-capped peak. It's about that was over 15,000 feet. And then at the base of this, it's like a pyramid shape. At the base of that was this lake. And I was 15,000 feet and I got up there and I was like, shoot, I don't feel like hiking a lot, but I started out to go around on the lake because of the way that the architecture of it, the glacial movement, the lake was surrounded by these huge blocks of stone. It was actually a very hard place to hike around because there were big, large blocks. There was no flat, very little flat terrain. So I started around this thing, looking, and maybe 300 or 400 yards in came this plant growing up out of the rocks, that flower. And it is approximately 3 times larger than any place else in Peru I ever saw it. And it was one flower. And there weren't any other flowers like that up there. So it's like so strange that I was guided to this thing. And it is the most beautiful example of that energy and that lake. And there was something very unusual about that lake. And I started to extract it and it began to snow. So if anybody's ever tried to make a flower essence while it's snowing, don't try it. But I had no option, and it worked. I was able to do it because of the method of my technique. I was able to capture that energy in the process, in the apparatus. Now it's a long story, but the glaciation there left. That lake was gone within about 6 or 7 years after I was there. The lake is gone. The glacier is gone. That area of Peru has faster disappearance of glaciers than any other place on Earth. I remember reading that. So that's an example. That flower will never be found again. And I made bunches of it. I made lots, fortunately. I have a lot of them. And so it's very remarkable because remember I said hopelessness, right? That's the snowball flower that was in the human support. This Maculina is in another very great combination essence called Revival. And Revival, let's see, this is Revival. And it has, you can see the Maculina, it has blue-eyed grass, it has mayapple, tulip poplar, wild iris, and this amazing flower from northern Canada, lady slipper. And this Revival was the first combination essence that I made to change the belief, regardless of my efforts, I cannot influence the outcome. So just imagine if someone had that playing in their unconscious mind, regardless of my efforts, I cannot influence the outcome, they would feel pretty hopeless, right? They would feel defeated. So one of the great things about Revival is that it can break these patterns of just feeling hopeless, defeated. Tulip poplar raises self-esteem like I've hardly ever seen before. I'm going to go to an area called Photos of Change. This is one of the patients, one of the early patients that he came in right after I got that formula made. It had tulip poplar. Now, I took these photos in my office, and they're taken very carefully, telling a person to look straight into the lens of the camera and hold their head like they would normally hold, looking straight, really correct their posture. Well, You have to look at some things here. His posture had stooped to it when he was told to stand straight, and his head faced slightly downward. Look at the eyes there, look at the face. And 2 weeks later, doing no other therapy, only taking the flower essences, that's what happened. Now, people will say, oh, well, you told him to smile. No. We have this discussion on the website. All the individuals photographed were instructed, do not smile. Maintain a resting expression. When there appears to be a smile in the after photo, it is because the resting expression is permanently changed. So what's interesting, that's the most remarkable change I ever saw. That was 1 month. And that was only from taking a flower essence blend that she got in Florida. So the aspect ratio of the distance between the center of the iris and the center of the iris here, if you measure that and superimpose those images, they're precisely superimposed. What that means is the aspect ratio of the photos from side to side are accurate. And if you see any changes in the facial architecture, it's because they're bony changes. So when a substance that theoretically has nothing in it except energy causes that kind of a shift and actually changes in the bony architecture of the face, something pretty powerful has got to be going on. Here is also an actual change in the bony architecture of his face. That's in 2 weeks.
Even his hair
So when I
looks-
saw that, yeah, no, everything is, look at the self-esteem. My God. It's like, dude, and I've seen him now, he did well as a patient, but that was the primary issues that he came to me for were fixed in 2 weeks. Yet I've run into him several times in Nashville. I saw him a few years ago, and he never regressed. That was a permanent change. Now, not everybody has that, but these are striking examples. That's another one. That's 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks. She had a great deal of trauma in her life. This is another guy. Now, those are patients that I saw. Never saw this fellow. I do remote. I prescribe things remotely. You can do that on the website. But he was in California, Southern California, and just coming out of his skin with tension, and then, about 3 weeks later, big change. Just feel a lot less internal tension. This is in my office. This is the favorite one where I just kept telling her in the follow-up. She came in 2 weeks later. Exactly. He kept saying, would you please stop smiling? And then the way that happens is I tell them, close your eyes, maintain a resting expression, which is not smiling, and then open your eyes. When they open their eyes, then I snap the photo. And I'll generally do 3 or 4 photos to try and get an average of what's an accurate, photo. And that is her resting expression. And the one before was when she came in telling me about the problems of being a single mom and having an extraordinarily difficult classroom. She was a teacher with out of control kids. And that's the way she was. And then same thing, but she took a remedy. That's what happened.
And is this all the same essence that they've taken? Or is it?
No, these are different. They're different essences. Now, I believe she probably, these are all one, either a single flower in some cases or a combination, but for that period of time. Yeah. So they would typically take it anywhere between 3 times a day, and depending on the energy of the person, sometimes they could take it many times a day. And there's some instruction about how to take these things, and there's that instruction on the website. how to take floral life essences. And it's a very nice little document telling you how and why to take them in this way. Actually, it's worth taking a moment to show that. But anyway, this one was also marvelous. Saw her, gave a workshop in Southern California, administered these, gave them the remedies while I was there. Came back to, I took that photo on the left. She sent me the photo on the right. But again, I take those photos and I make sure that the aspect ratio, notice the distance between the center of the pupils is the same. That way we can see. Now, again, look at the girl. I mean, and she describes it. She got this huge charge of energy and she was able to walk up her driveway. This is another great one. Completely vacant being, not embodied here. Dramatic. Now, I ended up treating this lady for a year. I gave her about 5 different remedies over the course of several months. And that was the most dramatic positive change. Then after that, there was a downturn and she ran into other things that were being pulled up out of the unconscious mind. So it's not all, ease and peace and light. Okay. I mean, realistically, this was the first 3-week interval where she had the first remedy. It was just a huge change. You go, oh, everything's clear. No, it wasn't. So more stuff. So that's why when people are using For Alive and they have a good response, really, really encourage them to go back in and take more of the essences to use differently. And a lot of people do that for 3 or 4 or 5 of our essences, and then they'll get a private blend, a consultation with me when they've had these great results from some of the other flowers. And then because I use things that are not on the website, I use some special reserve that I reserve that for my own private work with patients or clients call in. So there's a reason to do that. This is a great one. The actual bony orbit changed. If we do cranial therapy and we look, she has a compression of the temporal area here and the area, the frontal area, major. And that's all reversed here. Substantially reversed. She noticed that. She said, look at the difference between these photos. She said, my whole eye, she got 100 stitches in the back of her skull from a serious car accident. And that was remarkable again. She took both of those photos. And they're good photos, before and after. She really was good about making them similar. And, I saw that and I just went, oh my gosh, another example of that. And then this lady. From the beginning, look how we went at it for 9 months. That's where she started. That's where she ended up. Yeah. Just beautiful. I talked to her, I said, we get married, right? Well, what does your husband think of you now? Yeah. Pretty great, yeah?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I kind of stopped doing that. It's fascinating. It actually takes a lot of work to do this, even to just get the photos correct. And so, but I had so many of those, I had enough to show on the website. And, it's consistent. This is in the resources section at the bottom of the website, of the foralive.com website. It's how to take up flower essences. And so it says, it's information and memory that are transferred from the surface of a living flower to the water surrounding it in the uncut flower extraction process. Then the water is highly diluted, taken in drops so that the information, benevolent energy somehow coated in the flower, can more easily influence our stored unconscious memory in our space. Okay, that's my book, talking about our space and D space and what that means in quantum physics from the standpoint of the physicist that showed me that model. But here's what's very interesting, and this comes from classical homeopathy. And most people, unfortunately, all our practitioners are not familiar with it. If you take a substance that has, this could be a single homeopathic remedy or a single flower essence. that has a characteristic waveform to it that has, this isn't just sort of high school physics, basic. The height of the wave is the amplitude of it. And if you take a wave that has a given amplitude and you superimpose the same thing on it, it just gets bigger. It becomes more powerful. And so this shows that if you took it at a certain time and you added in T2 a second time, you would get B a third time. And then if you add the same substance to it again, like let's say 5 drops. So we'll use fluoride in 5-drop doses. So we do 5 drops, then 5 minutes later, we do another 5 drops. The power of that grows because it's superimposing. This is in waveform in physics. And if you take that same 5 drops and add it to B, which is the accumulation of 10 drops, now you get a waveform C that is taller amplitude, bigger. And you add A again, that same 5 drops. And then this becomes D, even a higher amplitude. And the bigger that amplitude becomes, the more it will break patterns. So in classical homeopathy, when you take a high potency substance, like, let me think of something good. Belladonna. Belladonna is something that you might use in 30C strength, reasonable, intermediate strength, but it's highly, highly diluted. Belladonna is poisonous as a plant extract, and you dilute it 10 to the 30 times, which is highly, highly dilute, billions and billions of times. It then has no substance left and only energy. So 200 years from some years has been proven highly effective. Somebody has a fever and you give belladonna and you don't see any particular effect. The fever doesn't lower, and 20 minutes later you give it again, you get a little response, and 20 minutes later you give it again, and boom, the fever drops, because you've got an amplitude big enough to counter what was going on in the body, and it'll drop the fever. The same thing happens with fluoride. If people have patterns that are very strong and don't change, if you give these drops frequently, it'll develop a huge force of change. And what this article, 3 pages long, talks about is that you have to be careful of that. Because if you're not stout, it can cause hyper. It can be too much change. So you have to be careful. If people are very, very sensitive, and I think I have another article called Directions for the Very Sensitive, you have to be careful how much you take. And I have people that get to the point where they've been in spiritual disciplines for a long time. I call them, they're hardy. They're hardy people. They're not timid, and they don't care if they crash their consciousness a little bit for a day or two. They don't care if they take something so powerful that it breaks them up and they can hardly stand up. They laugh and they go, ha ha, I'm busting that pattern. And they just persevere. And I've had many people like that over the years, but that's not the norm. So you have to be careful. But if you're ready for it, you can take that stuff, you can add it, you can take it every 20 or 30 minutes until it just shakes you. But you don't want to do that unless you're used to that kind of thing. Because some people will take it, they don't know that, and they become afraid. Oh my gosh, what's going on? It's cataclysmic change. But in general, 5 drops, taken 3 or 4 times a day, is wonderful. And in the early years on Revival, we said, put 30 drops in water and sip it throughout the day. And you can do that. People still do. It's just stronger. Back in the early days, I wanted everybody to shift quickly. So I gotten a little bit more mellow as time goes on.
Nice. Wow. So we can affect real change, emotional change, and get rid of the baggage by just having some of these drops a few times a day.
Drops, and the reason that I chose the name for my book, The Floral Hand of God, as dramatic as that sounds, is unless you get something divine touching you, I don't know how you'd see that happening time and time again. It's just not normal. It's not normal. It is a blessing. It's a it's a word that's you see a lot in the Catholic religion, and I'm not drawing it from that, but it's a wonderful concept. I think it's maybe not used. It's a little strange the way it's used in Catholicism, because it sounds like the word is dispensation. The word is dispensation is, for example, if you go to Mass or you do a special Mass and you go through the procedural things that they require you to do, then, and maybe it even has to do with going through the hierarchy that they have in that particular religion, that you may receive dispensation. Or, I mean, at the highest level, maybe it would be from a bishop, or it could be from a cardinal if you were like a big shot, and they would give you a dispensation.
Yeah.
But that's mediated kind of through a person, and that always kind of bugged me, because we kind of want it to come from God or source, right? Yeah. I don't really want my dispensation coming from some fellow, however nice he might be. I would prefer it to be directly from source. So that word, when I use it, they're divine dispensation.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think we're in that time.
When that occurs,
right? Everything we need is coming to us, right? And that's why, we need people like you to take the information and do something with it and bring out something that can affect everyone, right, in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I feel very honored. People can maybe heap praise on me. I love it. I've worked very, very hard. I deserve some credit, but it's not me. I mean, I went and got this stuff, but I surely didn't create it. Because no one could. No human can create these kinds of things. They are divine dispensations. Particularly if you think of it, when I started working in 2000 and stopped the preparations in 2015, and I will resume again here probably maybe in 2024. It was time, to get for our new cycle, this big huge cycle coming that we're in. There's got to be some new essences, but what I saw was somehow this superior intelligence had this whole thing charted out, and they got me, and they directed me around to finding these places, and the flowers that I found were sequentially linked to each other. Now, so I would find something in Peru, and then I would find its companion in Bali 3 years later. And when you looked at the formula, they actually worked together. And that is how the whole product line was built. It was not built by and I've been a student of religions and philosophy my whole life, starting at age 14. So Tibetan Buddhism, Judaism, and Christianity. I've looked at all. I'm pretty familiar with, and I honor, Shintoism. There's so many traditions, Hinduism. These things all have insights, into that. But it's humans. It doesn't matter how much you couldn't have that overarching super intelligence and foresight to figure out where all these frequencies were around the world, and then somehow put them all together. And that's what happened. So it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's fantastic. I think tie up for all of these lovely essences we chatted about. We've got Hartman, we've got healing support, you've got blue-eyed grass, and you shared some new stories I haven't heard before on how you went through your life and your experiences from 14 to today to follow sequentially, as you found. That's a unique and interesting story, to put everything together. Is there anything perhaps you'd like to, leave our viewers with on the way out from this particular chat? Or Campbell, do you have any questions?
No, I think I'm good. I'd just say to everyone, if you've got any of these sort of issues, if you're sort of stuck and you find these things you can't get over, then definitely jump on the website, have a read about it, read the research, check out all the testimonials and the photos, and
Hmm.
if it feels good, give it a go. What do you got to lose?
Yeah. Well,
But your
Well,
baggage.
that is it's a very, very important. What have you got to lose except your baggage? Because remember, there is nothing in it to harm you. They are sold as floral sacraments. We're the first person to ever call them that, but that is the appropriate name. They
I
are
agree.
sacred. They are
Yeah,
sacred.
it sounds like when you're getting it, it's like a ceremony. It is a sacred thing. It's not
Hmm.
sacred substance. And so I tell people, when you can handle sacred substance, oh, what an honor that is. And so it is this time, and it's always that way as the holiday season comes up. It's a heightened time astrologically and everything. But now we have all the dissension and the warring. I'm not following it, but it must be quite horrible. And the efforts of getting everyone to drop into this low place of fear and possibly hopelessness. So the healing support is this magnificent 6 flowers. Take us out of it. It includes heart mend. And then we have this other special for if people just wanted heart mend, and we've got, you can get 6 bottles of this stuff. We're not really making much money on this. It's a seasonal offering. It's just something to help in the cycle. So it's a huge reduction in price. And get 6 bottles of this stuff and give it to people, family members, so on. Heart mend is a home run for almost everyone, whether they know it or not. They would not know it in many cases unless you test them, but you can do that at a family gathering or so on. That's going to make that a topic. Certainly not at the dinner table, but you're talking. So hey, can you think of something or someone that when they left your life or passed on, really left, and here's the phrase, left a hole in your heart? I didn't finish that story now that I mention it. I did mention seers from all these areas, the Philippines, Japan, Malaysia was another group here. These clairvoyants, I had them watch very carefully when we gave heart mend. In shop, they were in with me real time as I was admitted. And actually, I have a video. Haven't edited it yet, but it's pretty cool because I captured it on film. And it didn't matter whether they were Japanese or Philippine or Malaysian or here in below Nashville, in Asheville, North Carolina. I had that same thing happen. All of them independently, years different between them, they described exactly the same thing with heart mend. They saw the same thing. They saw pre-administration a black vortex. It was like a cyclone curve, a cyclone above the heart of darkness. It was a hole. It went down into the chakra itself, but it went into the chest, a hole. And it depended how difficult it was. It could be small, a little cone, or it could be quite large cone. And upon administering the heart mend, and this is really cool. Again, I have the faces of these clairvoyants as they're sitting here watching, because remember, they're seeing real time what's going on. They're seeing dimensionally what we normally can't see. They're sitting there, they're normal folks, but they just happen to be able to see things in the other dimensional levels above the 4th dimension. And they all described the shifting of this and disappearance of this dark cone that started at 5 or 10 seconds and sometimes took as long as 10 minutes. But it would simply break apart and move up and leave. And it was no longer there. It's no longer there.
Wow.
And they
Nice.
all described the same thing. And that was for heart mend.
Nice.
So that's why it's a huge thing. Heart mend is a huge thing, and the healing support. So those are both things that we're offering. And I love it for this holiday season. I hope it helps people. And let us know, by the way. I mean, gosh, go to the website. We've got someone that's going to help with that. But people have these great experiences and they forget to go back to the website and write a review on the product. There's a little thing where you can click on review. So I hope people will do that.
Feel free to share with us as well. We'll pass it along. You can leave comments below the videos as we get them out, and send us the emails and your experiences. And we'd love to share those with Brent and everyone else who feels they could use, as I have, and as everyone does, as Brent says, some heartmen, some healing support, and all kinds of other lovely ways to help yourself for the holidays and beyond.
Awesome.
Well,
All right.
best wishes from us all.
Yes,
best wishes.
Merry seasons, and links below.
Yeah, we'll leave all the links below to all the
Happy
products.
holidays.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Davis. I appreciate you joining us again. We'll get this up as soon as we can, and you too, Campbell. And I'll see you all again very, very soon. We love you all on the next upload. Cheers for now, everyone.
Hey guys.
Can't make me lie to my heart. No one tells me where I should start. Freedom first is what I say.